Good evening, everybody, and my apologies for the delay. My name is Conor, and I sit on the Wicklow PPN Secretariat. On behalf of the Wicklow PPN Secretariat and Wicklow Older People's Council, I would like to extend a warm welcome to everybody joining us tonight. We would like to thank our PPN members and the Older People's Council for working with us on this event and for sending in your questions. There was a great response, and with less than 2 hours at our disposal, it would be impossible to have them all answered. We have prioritised the questions that had a recurring theme and will aim to get as many answered as possible. However, we have also sent all the questions to the candidates so that they are aware of what's important to our communities. And if we run out of time and you still have a question that you would like to ask the candidates to be aware of, please email it in to us and we will pass it on. We would like to thank all of the candidates joining us this evening. We appreciate your engagement with us and look forward to hearing about why you are running and what's important to you. We would also like to thank this evening's facilitator, Dr. Emerson, for agreeing to facilitate tonight's meeting. With over Helen Groney will also support our facilitator this evening with timekeeping and with webinar support. Tonight's meeting will begin with each candidate providing us with some information about themselves. Candidates will be provided with 90 seconds maximum. It is important that candidates stick to this time frame to allow everybody equal speaking time and to ensure that there's time for questions. A clock will run on screen, and should candidates overrun, we will mute them after 5 seconds. However, we hope we won't need to do that. In corresponding with the candidates prior to this meeting, we have asked that where they cite facts or figures, that they should also provide their information sources or evidence base. Wicklow PPN and Wicklow Older People's Council value diversity, and we operate on the principles of respect, equality, and inclusion. We expect that everybody on this call this evening conducts themselves in the same spirit. However, in the unlikely event that dialogue should become insulting, abusive, incendiary, or inappropriate, we reserve the right to remove the perpetrator. It is the role of Wicklow PPN and the Wicklow Older People's Council to support our members to have their voices heard. We do this in the most part by making supportive connections. We are all looking forward to making connections this evening that we hope are beneficial for us all, now and into the future. Please be aware that we are recording this session and we will make it available to our members who are unable to join this evening. But I would now like to pass the meeting to our facilitators' capable hands. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Conor. And extend my welcome as well to everybody. I would like at this point just to very clearly to state that there are 2 of the candidates who've declared already who've submitted their apologies, and that's Joe Behan, which is a non-party candidate, and Mick who's Sinn Féin candidate. Okay, so as far as we're aware, we have all the other candidates in the Bray West area here this evening. So welcome to them, and thank you for giving up your time this evening. We've heard those very clear ground rules, I guess, and the questions that have been submitted, you've seen the full version of them. There were very many. We've grouped them where we can on similar themes, but because those questions have been shared with you, I think you've got an idea of the range of the topic that they include as we go through them. So the way we're going to run it is that every candidate, we're going to start with going through the list of candidates alphabetically, and every candidate is going to take a minute and a half just to talk a little bit about themselves, what they're standing for, why they're standing in this election. And there will be a clock running on the screen, and you'll particularly see it in Grania's window. And when we get to the end of that minute and a half, if you like, there's a 5-second grace, and after that, candidates will be muted. We just simply don't have time for debate. So we're going to ask people to use their time, and then as we move on through the individual questions, again, there's a minute for each of for a response to each of those. Okay, and just to be clear, we're going to go alphabetically in the first instance, and then what I'll do is, if you like, rotate the alphabet down. I think it'll make sense as we go, and you'll see that I'm just simply trying to make sure that nobody features, or sticks in anybody's mind unfairly because of the order that I'm asking questions in. And the last thing to say is, it'll sound a bit weird and artificial, but I am going to give people's full names every time I ask you to speak, because that's what people will know you as. And I think it's only fair that you know, your full name's given each time. So I'll try and remember to do that. Okay. So on that foot, I'm going to suggest that we start away, and I'm going to actually come first, if I may, to Rob Carey, and say, perhaps you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your standing in this election, and your 90 seconds starts when you do.
Yeah, so I'm Rob Corrigan. I'm non-party. I'd be best known as a martial arts coach, because I set up and run a martial arts group that's pretty sizable. We've had thousands through our doors from the town over the last 10 years. Now, I've used the club as a means of supporting numerous good causes, like we do a breast cancer fundraiser every year. We raise money for medical aid for Palestine, and we did one last year for 5 Loaves. But there's a lot more to me than just being the martial arts guy. So I've a pretty varied background. I've an honours degree in history and politics from UCD. I've got a master's in journalism, and I spent 10 years working in the media. I'm also a small business owner. I run a commercial gym, and I suppose the reason why I decided to circle back to my interest in politics from all those years ago in college is because, to be honest, I got sick of seeing so many of my students struggling with their mental health, struggling to get a home of their own, and in far too many cases being forced to emigrate. So really, that's what drove me to get involved. I got sick of complaining from the sidelines and decided to get in there and try and affect some positive change. So my main areas of concern, you'd probably expect, are housing in that regard, but also migration and youth mental health. And if I had one thing that I'd like to kind of put forward in the limited time, I'd just like to mention that if I get elected, I will be donating the wage to a youth mental health initiative that I established for my students. So if someone does choose to vote for me and you manage to get me in, that means you will be securing thousands of euro worth of professional mental health care for Bray's young people. So don't forget to register. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much, Rob. That's great. I'm going to move now to Melanie Corrigan, please.
Thank you. My name is Melanie Corrigan. I live in Enniskerry. I've lived here all my life with my husband and my 4 children. Myself and my husband also ran a business in Bray for over 20 years. We now run a small wholesale business from home. I'm a sitting councillor. I'm the current Gael of the Bray Municipal District. I'm also chair of the Local Community Development Committee, which oversees programmes for social inclusion, family and community supports. And I sit on the Community Cultural and Social Development SPC in Wicklow County Council. I have a keen interest in community and business development, and also as a board member of Wicklow Tourism, very supportive of local tourism and initiatives and promoting business locally. I'm also very passionate about the arts, and I'm a member of the board of the Mermaid Arts Theatre, and I really enjoy that, supporting local arts and working with different diverse communities within the arts sector. I have an adult child with a disability, so I feel very strongly about making life easier for her and her peers in the community, and for anyone with a disability, be it age-related, hidden, mental or physical. And as a mother, I also want to make the environment that I'm living in and my children are growing up in to be a safer one and securer one. And I work very closely with a lot of local groups and sports groups and tidy towns and biodiversity groups to try and improve the environment that we're living in and make it safer. And that's what has driven me to want to run initially and to continue to run to make improvements for the community that we live in.
Thank you very much, Melanie. That's great timekeeping so far. So Colm, I'm coming to you now, please.
Yeah, so my name is Colm Flood, and I suppose my background would be very medical. I started volunteering since I was 15 with the likes of St. John Ambulance and the Order of Malta. I moved my way up to become a carer after my mother got sick with cancer, and I suppose I started to work in the nursing field thanks to the care that I gave her. And a lot of the time, my patients in the hospital when I was on placement would say there's no chance of getting a home for them or their children in the future. And housing is a serious issue. And I suppose I would have been along the same lines. Stop complaining from the sidelines. Action is needed now. And it's important that housing is done. There's over 166,000 homes vacant since the census 2022. And that's nationwide. So there is a chunk of that is in Wicklow that we need to look at. If I'm elected, I will be returning these empty homes for social housing to help ensure that our constituents have a home, that their family can grow up safe knowing that. And I suppose that we can integrate into the community again what we once had when I was growing up, which was community fun days. You got to know your neighbours, and the issues that you had in your area, you know, they were listened to. So I want to run to ensure that everyone's voices are heard, representation and action is done, and vacant homes are brought back into service. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colm. I'm going to now go to Bryan Kenna, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Bryan Kenna. I'm the Labour Party representative for Bray West candidate. It's my first time running as a local representative. I'm from Kilmechanic and living in Kilmechanic. My background would be in the disability sector. I have a master's in business management with a background in behavioural psychology. I currently work with children and young adults with disability for the last 15 years. I've progressed throughout the organisation up to currently managing 2 residential locations with a budget of around about 1.8 million. I've decided to run elections. As you can see, there's a real need for change and new ideas on common reoccurring problems, and also to revive that community spirit that I think is slowly disappearing. It hasn't completely died away, so it's to reignite that, as well as other changes such as transport, which seems to be a common theme from knocking on doors, that we need an effective transport system for Bray and the rural areas as well. I would also be a massive advocate for mental health services. I'm looking at mental health services in Wicklow. It's failing young adolescents and into adults as well, and as well bringing in awareness for males as well into mental health and break that stigma, break it at an early age, and support along with give.
Sorry, Bryan, we've cut you off just in the interest of fairness and time management. So thank you for that, and forgive us for the cutoff, the brutal cutoff. Okay, I'm going to take that question now to Dermot or Bryan.
Thank you very much, Harriet, and thanks to the PPN team. I'm Dermot Daisy O'Brien. Daisy, a nickname that I've had since I was about 14 years old and haven't been able to shake it, so I embraced it. I would describe myself as a local person who is standing in the local elections. And what am I bringing with me? I'm bringing 3 decades of experience in the community, experience in youth work, experience in community development, and experience in education. And what I have added is 5 years of experience as an elected rep in Wicklow County Council and in Bray MD. One of the things that stands out for me and has stood out over the period of time, and what I've learned probably the most, is that when we're making decisions and when we're striving to do good things across all the areas that are relevant to local authority, the closer we are to people and communities and groups that have lived experience, that have special interests, that can inform the decisions, the better decisions that we make. So I'm really passionate about inclusive participation and engagement. I have a special little a little love for intergenerational solidarity because I'm a youth worker by trade. So I've done some magnificent work where we bring together young people and older people and feed off the synergies that come with that. I'm on the Biodiversity and Climate SPC. I'm on the Drugs Task Force, Supportive Management of the School here in Bray, and really just want to go back in and keep doing this really important work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dermot, for that. And I'm going next to go to Alex Pigot, please.
Hi, everyone. I've lived in Bray West for most of my life. I founded and run my own small business nearly 40 years ago. My 6 children are all grown up now, and I was a member of, some of the stuff that they were involved with in terms of schools and sports at the time. In 2012, my wife Tina and I founded an international charity called Addressing the Unaddressed, And in recent years, we've either founded or joined a number of community groups dealing with environment, tidy towns, refugees. I sing in Kirtlestown Church Choir for light relief on Sundays. But in the Green Party, I'm the convener of the Green Party policy groups dealing with housing, universal basic income, carbon tax and dividend, and shared islands. My priorities for Bray West are working to solve the housing affordability issue, working for the environment for our children's sake, working to reduce conflict locally and elsewhere. Green ministers and government have a lot of really good responsibilities in things like transport, environment, children, marine, agriculture, and so on. So I have access to a fantastic group of ministers who can advise and assist me in getting things done at a local level here in Bray. So I'm asking you to give me my #1 vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex, for that. And I'm going to go lastly in this initial 1.5 minutes introduction time to Caroline Winstanley, please.
Thank you very much. Last but not least. So my name is Dr. Caroline Winstanley, and I'm representing the Social Democrats in the local elections. I've been in Bray for 12 years with my husband, and I have 2 children, 10 and 13 years of age. I've been working in disability for over 20 years. I'm a speech and language therapist, and I specialise in autism. I'm also a subject matter expert for the HSC. I've worked in schools, clinical settings in the community. I've worked with people in direct provision from my minority populations and impoverished backgrounds. Work in a large adult disability service. I'm a person-centred planner. So probably most of you don't know what that is, but I work with people with disability to basically help them construct their vision of their best life and then work towards kind of fulfilling their dreams. So this would be kind of if they want to move into independent living, if they want to access community supports or community activities. I also lead human rights and advocacy projects within the organisation. And in my spare time, I'm also on the stakeholder group for the Wasted Lives Report. And that's about keeping people with disability who are under the age of 65 out of nursing homes. I also manage son's under 15s football team, and I'm on the board of management for my daughter's school, and I love sea swimming. And I believe wholeheartedly the Social Democrats is about a fair, inclusive society that doesn't leave anyone behind, and that's going to be underpinning everything that I do. And I'm running out of time, so I'm going to end it.
Thank you very much, Caroline. I'm just looking at a couple of faces there. I don't think it was just me. Some of your sound wasn't great, so I don't know if you can turn your volume up a little bit. Just that might improve things. Otherwise, maybe Grania or Helen might have pointers, just so that we don't miss what you're saying for further rounds. Okay, so thank you very much to everybody, and for keeping to time. I have a list of questions which are condensed down to 12, but it depends how quickly, if you like, I suppose we get through those. The pattern that we've been using is, again, to go through the list of candidates alphabetically, but I won't now start with Rob. I'll start with Melanie Corrigan, and we'll take it down and come back and finish with Rob Carey on this occasion. So we'll see how I cycle through the names. So on that basis, these questions we're going to give people initially a minute to respond on each. Okay, just in the hope that we will then manage to get it through them all. They've come in from a whole range of community groups and organisations, and from members of the Older People's Council, and been combined where there's similar themes. So the first question that I'm going to come to each of the candidates with is, what will you do if elected to address traffic and transport issues in Bray? Now, there are a lot of, with particular references to, I'm just going to mention a few of those. Things like overgrown footpaths, hedges on footpaths, poor surfaces on footpaths, bad coordination of traffic services, whether that's buses, trains, DART, whatever, poor enforcement of traffic laws, and essentially a whole array of issues that people have in relation to traffic and transport in Bray. So just again, that question is, what will you do if elected to address traffic and transport issues in Bray? And I think all the candidates have seen this list, so hopefully you may refer to those particulars if you want to. So as I said, I'm coming first of all, please, to Melanie Corrigan.
Okay, thank you. Gosh, a minute doesn't kind of cover it, but Recently, myself and a colleague had a motion in Wicklow County Council only last Monday on getting a study done to examine fully the traffic congestion in Bray, looking at it from all angles, from planning, for planning that's going on at the moment, for planning that's in at the moment, for future planning. We're looking at Fassaro for all the development that's up there, taking in all the agencies like the TII, NTA, all the different agencies coming together, Wicklow and Bray, and even Dunleary Down, because a lot of the congestion, there's all the building in Shangana coming in. So we have asked that a proper survey be done and examined. The 2019 one that was done is completely out of date at this stage with so much planning. The other issues then, overgrowing hedges and everything like that. If it's a private property, people have to have they should know to contact the council and let them know who owns the property, and the council can write to them, ask them to cut them back. If it's council property, contact the council or councillors to do something about it, and we have that power.
Thank you very much, Melanie, Corrigan, and I do appreciate that a minute is no time at all to answer these questions. So we feel your frustration, but in order to get through it and give everybody a fair crack at answering it, we're going to stick to our timings. So the same question, please, to Colm Flood.
Yeah, so a minute really isn't enough time to go through it, but I suppose part of the work that I've already done as a candidate is to raise issues on especially the Ardnagh Grange, Heatherwood and Ashfield Court area where the new Pettit super value is. And I suppose there's an entryway that leads from the Southern Cross into that estate where we have children playing. They're not respecting the stop signs, they're not respecting the speed limits, and there's been at least 12 near misses reported by the local residents so far. This is a serious concern, so I helped work with SuperValue to get bollards put in there to ensure that there was no on-street parking, no risk of reduced visibility for drivers. I suppose for council estates, this is an issue that I've been taking up very recently. There are caretakers on CE schemes in estates. One up in my estate here has been campaigning for a long time, especially with the Housing Association, to get resources like skips, bags, litter pickers. He's using his own equipment essentially while being paid on a CE scheme for it. So if I'm elected, I'll be ensuring that they get the resources they need to take care of our environment and our estates.
Okay, thank you very much, Colm. I'm going to take the same question then to Bryan, Kenna, please.
Sorry. Yeah, the Transport Infrastructure Ireland stats from 2022 shows that there was nearly 92,000 cars coming from the M11, from the M50 M11. So we do need to look at infrastructure before building houses and making sure that there is capacity there and other alternative routes to come off rather than gridlock and Bray. There is a massive amount of issues as well with the traffic on the Southern Cross coming along and residents taking them about 15 minutes or so. So we need to have a look at that as well, slowing down traffic and making sure that it's still moving, but at the same time in a safe manner. When it comes to footpaths, also there is a lot of trees overgrown, damaging the footpaths as well, that people in wheelchairs, elderly people are not able to get it across as well. So we need to look at and maintain hedgerows as well on council property. They need to be cut back, and curbings, footpaths need to be reinstated where they are damaged from overgrown hedges. Sorry, it's nearly up. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, no, sorry, it is very tight. I appreciate that. So thank you very much. The same question to Dermot or Bryan, please.
Thanks very much. I can actually see why this was a top question. For me, one of the big idea I have about this issue, because it's a recurring issue, and we can see one example of how decisions being made about this stuff that doesn't involve people fail miserably, which is trying to close off the exit off the N11 onto the Herbert Road. So my big idea for this issue is that, and again, and it's something that's very familiar to the PPN structure, is that we need to have a deliberative approach to this, which means that we bring all the people together, discuss all the issues together, and you can do consultations and you can do studies, and all of that is very kind of one dimensional and very linear. But if we bring people together for the process and deliberate on what are the issues, what do we need to know, when we know all this, then what decisions need to be made to alleviate the problems. Because if you don't include people in those conversations and a decision is made and then the impact hasn't been considered, then you're left with carnage. So I think like almost a mini citizens assembly on traffic and transport.
Thank you very much for that, Dermot. And we're going now to Alex Pigot with the same question, please.
Thank you very much. Well, since 2022, Eamon Ryan, our Minister for Transport, he's added or enhanced over 100 bus routes to the national bus network. And at the same time, fares have been reduced by him by 20% and for the under 26s by 60%. In addition, leap cards are now available in every post office. And this has seen an over 100% increase in passenger numbers and over 70% increase in local link. Local and rural bus services are a priority for Greens, as can be seen by what we've achieved in just the 2 short years. For us here in Bray West, what we want is even more dependability and more frequency of service. And I know that's what Eamon Ryan and our Stephen Matthews wants. As their Green colleague, I have their support in achieving that for Bray West. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. And next to Caroline Winstanley.
Can you just check my sound before I start? Is that better? Well, when I was
and maybe, sorry, just I am going to, can we just restart the clock? Just keep as close as you are, I think, to the microphone. Yeah, that's maybe slightly better. Thank you.
So when I looked through all the questions, I saw that there was kind of 3 main themes. So there was definitely the need for us support a whole kind of traffic plan. So as Daisy was saying, I would completely agree with, we need full stakeholder engagement, and we need to be looking at things like a universal accessibility design. We need to make using public transport more attractive to people, so faster options, bus shelters. We also need to be thinking about kind of community policing. So there were several issues around people using scooters on footpaths. So we need to make sure that we have some way of managing that, and we need more people on the streets. And another issue that's kind of come up, an overarching theme, is that kind of community neglect. So Jennifer Whitmore and myself are currently collecting data on environmental neglect, so things like overhanging trees, all of those issues that are kind of being raised, because I think people are feeling that Bray's maybe a bit forgotten since kind of everything's moved more towards Wicklow. So we're just trying to get more evidence.
Thank you very much, Caroline. The sound was much better, so that's great. Let's hope that continues. Can I bring the same question to Rob Carey, please?
Okay, so I recently had a meeting with representatives of the Alliance of Bray Residents, and the main takeaway from the meeting was we need a comprehensive integrated traffic and mobility management plan for the town. And much of the transport infrastructure in Bray is really geared towards getting people to and from Bray, but there needs to be more of an emphasis on improving transport and mobility around the town for Bray residents. So it's easy for me to sit here and say, oh, we need to add a bus route here or change a road layout there. But the reality is that this is a job for a team of professionals. But of course, we need to get these locally flagged issues like adjusting the pedestrian crossing times, congestion on the main street, traffic law enforcement into that comprehensive plan. Now, I gave a commitment to the Alliance that I would work with whoever else gets elected to get an integrated traffic plan onto the agenda as a priority, and that's what I intend to do. Now, from what Melanie said, this work's underway, which is great news, so I'll certainly be happy to help push that along in whatever way I can.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Rob, and thank you to everybody for great timekeeping on this. Okay, I'm going to start the next question coming to Colm Flood first, and just to again to set out what that is. That question is, if elected, what will you do in relation to amenities for Bray? And again, there were a number of things particularly mentioned. So toilets in Bray Harbour, for example, promised cinemas never materialised in the town, lack of bottle bank in the centre of the town, the disappearance of the zero waste shop, no skate park, for example, problem with dog fouling, and so on. So those are a range of the issues that have come up as part of this, but it's summarised in the question: if elected, what will you do in relation to amenities for Bray? Okay, so I'm going to bring that first of all to Colm Flood, please.
Yeah, so the amenities of Bray have always been, I suppose, very low since our cinema was gone a number of years ago when I was a child. Amenities are really important, especially for the children of the local estates. They have told me many times that there's nothing for them to do. There are parks, but there's a number of crime that happen in the local parks in Ballywatram after a certain time, so children aren't allowed to go out into those playgrounds after a certain time. We need to ensure crime safety for those areas. We also need to ensure that this new Bray cinema is brought back. This is something that's really important to the constituents of Bray, and it's something that I think would bring a lot of, I suppose, commerce to Bray. It would help the local children and parents have something to do during the week. A skate park has, I suppose, been thrown around up here a lot, and I know there's a huge amount of enthusiasm for it. I'm currently working to campaign to get this done in the local area. In regards to bottle banks, the three up in Ballywatram have been removed, and I intend to find out when they will be put back into place and in other areas as well.
Thank you very much, Colm. So the same question, please, to Bryan Kenna.
On that, amenities, there is a skate park that is going in Gilspur Heights, and that's being worked on currently. My objective would be then for amenities would be adding disability spaces, and there is a lack of disability parking around Bray, and it would encourage people to come back into the town. We need to look at that also with the recycling plant and putting the recyclable, reusable shop up there where they wouldn't have overheads of that they would have down at the town when it comes to commercial rates, etc., and putting it into a space that is there and amenable to people as well. It'd be to increase some playgrounds and parks and just open green areas also that are, and making sure that they're safe spaces. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Bryan. And the same question to Dermot O'Brien, please.
Thank you. I suppose when we think about amenities, we have to consider things that are in the public domain that add value and can be appreciated by the general public, both young and old. And the biggest one on the agenda at the moment, which is really interesting, is the plan for the Ballywatram Recreation Park. And what's really good for people to understand is the journey of that plan started off as a maybe football-centric proposal. And then when the consultation kicked in and all the stakeholders were involved, what we have and what we were presented with on Tuesday is this really magnificent plan for a public park that will serve the needs of the football clubs that use it, all-weather pitch there, but also running track and a cycle track and outdoor gym, and even an area for casual sport play for young people, again, young and old, whoever might want to do it. So what's really, again, valuable about how we design and deliver amenities is how we were really responding to need when we do that stuff.
Thank you very much, Dermot. I'm going to ask the same question to Alex Pigot, please.
Thank you. Well, first of all, although I've had nothing to do with the current attempt to redevelop the bog meadow in Enniskerry for children's use, when I met Lorraine Gallagher putting in my nomination paper this morning, I reminded her how we tried to do this back in the early 90s when I was chair of the football club. And I'm fully supportive of that redevelopment. One of our local amenities in Enniskerry, and it's used by many in Bray though, is Knoxing Wood. It's an extremely special site. It's a EU designated special area of conservation. An ancient woodland with tough springs, and I'm going to strive to ensure that its future is sustainable for our future generations. And there's other things. The HSE sheltered unit in Enniskerry village has been closed for some 15 years, and the Powerscourt Hotel is now closed. The HSE also has a centre beside Knoxing Woods that's been closed. And these are also amenities in the health and tourism sector. And I intend to see these brought back into use also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. The same question to Caroline Winstanley.
So part of, I suppose, the issue with the cinema is I think we should be looking at how we rejuvenate Bray Main Street as a whole. I think particularly on the doors, lots of people have been talking about the number of kind of derelict properties, and And I think that that needs a whole kind of plan. I think that we need to be making sure that commercial rates are fair and transparent and competitive so that we can get businesses back into Bray. And I think this is part of the problem with like not attracting the cinema. We need to have a whole town approach where we're an attractive proposition. Disability is hugely important to me, and making Bray accessible to all. We don't have a disability changing place, but we have lots of people with disabilities that come to Bray and live in Bray. We don't have an accessible beach, and I would love to see a beach wheelchair on Bray Beach so that everyone can enjoy the amazing amenities that we already have. So it's opening up what we have and making it inclusive to everyone.
Great, thank you very much, Caroline. The same question to Rob Carey, please.
Okay, I'd like to raise the issue of the bottle return scheme here. I have some real concerns about this, and to my mind, I already recycle my bottles through my recycle bin. But my real issue with it is the fact that for people with mobility issues, or people relying on public transport, or people who are on foot, they have a serious problem utilising this scheme. And I find it very harsh to expect people to pack up their old plastic bottles, get on a bus and travel to where they can return these bottles. And of course, they run the risk of the unit being full or out of order. And in that situation, the charge on these bottles is essentially additional tax on people who have disabilities and people who rely on public transport. Now, it remains to be seen what could be done at a council level on this, but it's certainly something that I believe needs to be re-examined, and it's something that I'd like to highlight.
Thank you very much, Rob, for that. And I'm going to come lastly with this question to Melanie Corrigan.
Great, thank you. Yes, recently I actually had the honour of turning the sod for the skateboard park at the Gael of the district. And look, there's been a huge cry for over 20 years, children and me looking for that. So it's fantastic to see that. The futsal pitch up there and the basketball courts in Gilsborough Heights were also renovated, repainted and relined. So that's very positive. The cinema is coming. It has been very slow. You know, Pennies has been so slow as well, but it is coming. We haven't been told by the council otherwise. It's in the control of the management of the Bray Central, but what we believe it is still coming. But look, I would do anything I could to speed that up. The disability access and the toilets down the harbour. There's a new harbour development that's under development at the moment. They're looking at it. There's feasibility studies and everything being done. Now, I don't know exactly what's in it, but I know there is a lot of disability improvements there. And yes, as Dermot just said, the Ballywaltram Recreational Park, and I'm working myself on the Bog Meadow development. I'm very keen for facilities for children to be improved and working on them. Phew.
Great, thank you. And thank you all for your patience. It's just obviously in the interest of fairness, getting through all the questions, giving everyone a chance to respond. So thank you. Okay, so the next question that we have here is in regards to crime. What would you like to see happening locally to make our community safe for all, including migrants and asylum seekers? And there are a number of topics that are touched on in the questions that relate to this, including the visible presence of Gardaí, policing of dog owners, substance use and related issues, and safety in terms of lighting, and people being safe in the public area, if you like, the public realm. So again, the question is, in regard to crime, what would you like to see happening locally to make our community safe for all, including migrants and asylum seekers? And I'm going to ask that question first to Bryan Kenna, please.
To answer the part of that with the migrants as well, we want them to be fully integrated into the society as well. So having this question will encompass all of that, that they are integrated and they are part of our community. We want to see more lighting. We want to have more community guards in presence in Bray, whether it can be actual policing or community guard bases. We want to see guards actually up around Enniskerry, Kilmechanic also, whether it's in a car out around, and just have high visibility on Garda Síochána. Supporting with the dogs, increasing another dog park in Bray, or indeed up in around Enniskerry or somewhere like that as well, and making sure that it's only one area that dogs can be off the lead, and make sure there's enough bins around that area also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Bryan. I'm going to take the same question to Dermot O'Brien, please.
Thank you. So this is a tough 1 minute question for sure, and I'm wasting my time. For me, I think like the core of it is about that safety piece, and safety is a felt sense. So if people don't have a felt sense of safety, then they're going to look for how can that be, what can happen if that's the case. And when I think about safety then, and in the broadest sense, I think, well, what are we doing in terms of crime prevention? What are we doing about community policing? What are we doing about neighborhood watch? Are we supporting CCTV, and what deterrents are in place? But at the same time, we're also wondering about emergency response, and when I am in need, is that response efficient? Is it on time? Is it reliable? And then beyond that, I think the community engagement piece as well is really critical. We need, you know, when we have policing fora, then that makes a difference. When we have a policing plan, that makes a difference. And when we understand that there's a collective and cultural responsibility on everyone in community to try and build safety, then I think we can make a difference across all the areas.
Thank you very much, Dermot. I'm going to take the same question now to Alex Pigot, please.
Thank you. I think that here in North Wicklow, we're really lucky not only to live in such a beautiful area with a national park on our doorstep, but we have a wonderfully diverse society which is working and socialising well. I'd like to see that remain, not only for us, but our future generations. And yes, I think that a more visible community Garda presence is well worth the extra expense to the state. With regards to what's happening in Newtown and Kennedy, that it is a travesty with misinformation rife, and it's influenced by outside actors. Should a similar situation arise in Bray West, I'll work with Gardaí and with the community organisations like the Bray Residents Alliance and the Enniskerry Forum to avoid such situations. And for clarity, I, like most of us, will welcome peoples from all parts of the world fleeing injustice. When the Ukrainians arrived, we made sure they had decent shelter, material goods. We welcomed them socially into our communities, found school places for their children, and worked for some of the adults. We can do that for any group, because not only would we like to be treated similarly ourselves, it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And the same question to Caroline Winstanley, please.
The right to safety is a basic human right, and I would genuinely hope that people can come into Bray and feel that. I think we're a hugely inclusive society, and I can see that on the doors where there's many nationalities all living together. And I think Bray is a very vibrant place to live. We definitely need more community police. In fairness to the two community Gardaí, they really do try hard, and I've heard kind of great initiatives where they've been working with the local schools to try and make the children kind of feel safe when there's been issues kind of with substance use around school times, but they just feel like they're overstretched, and I think extra people on the street would make a huge difference. In terms of the substance use bit, no one's really kind of addressed that bit, but I suppose substance use is not just about policing, it's about good health within the community as well, and making sure that young people have things to do, so that they have, that there's investment in youth work and infrastructure and better facilities.
Thank you, Caroline. And I'm going to take the same question to Rob Carey, please.
Our international protection system is clearly not functioning as it should, and it's causing major problems in Wicklow and beyond. At this point, I believe that whatever moral obligation the Irish people has to house international protection applicants has been paid at this point. Screening tells us if applicants have committed crimes in Europe, but not in their home country in many cases, and to me that represents an unacceptable safety risk to the people of Ireland and to the people of Bray. I believe supports need to be wound down, and I believe our migrant crisis needs to be brought under control. So what can be done at a council level? Well, if elected, I'll be tabling a motion to the effect that the council should withdraw all cooperation with the department on anything to do with international protection centres. It might not result in our closure, but it'll certainly help us push the issue onto the government agenda.
Thank you, Rob. And the same question to Melanie Corrigan, please.
Thank you. There is definitely a shortage of Gardaí in Bray and Bray, the whole community. We're lucky it is a training station, and we do get recruits coming in all the time. I know the Gardaí want more. We regularly meet with them as a council. Every couple of months we sit down with them, and we have a private and frank discussion where we can raise issues that constituents bring with us. And I know that's something that we're constantly asking for, is to get more Gardaí into the community. There is a wonderful community Garda, Deirdre Murphy, who again, I think is very accessible to us all for issues that we want to deal with. We definitely need more dog wardens, and I would be really advocating for that. Not alone is the issue of dogs running wild around Bray and causing havoc, but also out on the sheep killing going on constantly out in the community. And I'd be committed to that. I would love to see actually a small substation in the town of Bray with a few vacant shops that they could take over. Again, it's manpower. When I've raised this before, it's manpower that they don't have, but it would increase people be able to access the Gardaí easier and more anonymously.
Thank you very much, Melanie. And can I take that question lastly to Colm Flood, please?
Yeah, so I suppose this is an issue that affects everyone on a local level. And I suppose for the addiction side of it, I sit on the board of management for the Bray Community Addiction Team, and I'm a big believer that addiction, is an illness. I believe that it is something that we can help overcome, and the Bray Community Addiction Team have done a fantastic job working with the Drugs Task Force to make sure that there are supports in the community, both here and in Little Bray. I suppose for asylum seekers, my work has been to place asylum seekers from Newtown, Mount Kennedy into local volunteer areas and help with that volunteer integration piece. So far, it's been very, very challenging because of the safety concerns for the asylum seekers, and indeed anyone that walks into and out of River Lodge. This is something that I think could absolutely get worse before it gets better, and I think our system does need to be reworked. I am in favour, of course, of housing asylum seekers fleeing war and persecution, and I think my heart goes out to them, and I think we should do everything we can, but at the same time, we are at capacity.
Thank you very much for that, Colm. Right, I'm going to go on to our next question now, which is in relation to social housing, and it's around candidates' commitment to ensuring housing for all, including older people and people with disabilities. And the questions that came in on this related to housing stock that the local authority is excluding housing association provision, and things are released through housing transfers, for example, and what the candidates would do in relation to vacant homes and ensuring that housing is a top priority. So that question is around candidates' commitment to ensuring housing for all, including older people and people with disabilities. And I'm going to ask it first, please, to Dermot O'Brien.
Thanks very much. Actually, I'm missing a briefing session with Owen O'Brien tonight to be at this meeting tonight. So housing is a big, obviously huge issue for me and my party. And again, in the short amount of time, what I definitely shine a light on is the challenge around, as was in some of the questions, bringing housing stock back into play. And I can tell you that there, at the moment in Bray, there are 46 council properties that are not back in play and have been sitting idle and empty. And there's nothing worse than housing is probably for a sitting councillor, it's probably the biggest issue in terms of the interpersonal day-to-day work that you do that doesn't land on your social media. But when you're talking and working with people who are walking past boarded up houses, you feel the pain of that, and you certainly empathize. Over the last 5 years, I actually was so committed to this issue. I wrote 2 papers with my colleague Grace McManus, one about housing and the challenge of housing, and the other about housing and trauma, which I think is a big part of this issue.
Thank you, Dermot. Can I take the same question to Alex Pigot, please?
Thank you. I've been the convener of the Green Party's Housing Policy Group since 2020, and also their Housing Policy Implementation Committee since 22. Green influence in housing has been very strong over the 4 years. Obviously, our biggest win was the introduction of cost rental housing, but there are others which have gone unheralded, especially in the area of bringing vacant and derelict properties back into use. And that's through the work of our Green Minister of State of Housing and Local Government, Malcolm Noonan. For example, the repair and lease scheme, which will finance up to 80,000 per dwelling for a landlord who brings it back into use for social housing purposes. And also the vacant property refurbishment grant, which will grant aid a home buyer up to 70,000 to bring it back into use, residential use. And then, of course, there's the funding as part of the government's Town Centre First policy, Remember, these properties don't have to be residential, they can be commercial, especially the over-the-shop type properties. These are Green Party initiatives. With the support of Minister Noonan, I expect to be able to achieve much in this area to bring vacant and derelict back into use. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. The same question, please, to Caroline Winstanley.
So we need more specific zoning for affordable housing. I think more estates like Kilrudgery Glen, I mean, that's an amazing estate, which is affordable and community driven. We need more public housing so that we can move away from a reliance on HAP and expand the role of cost rental housing. The Social Democrats have very strong policies on housing. We'd like to see full-time vacant housing officers within LEAs who will identify and mobilise vacant properties, and we'd like to see an increase in the vacant homes tax. And okay, yeah, don't worry.
Did I cut you off? I beg your pardon.
I thought you were finished.
Did I have half a minute left?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to take it?
Yeah, if that's okay.
Go for it. Sorry, my apologies.
Housing for disability, that's much more of a complex issue. So it's not just around having housing that's accessible, it's also about having PA supports, assessments for seeing if there is houses that are suitable. All of those things slow down the process. It's not always about the accessible housing. Then it needs to be much more of a wider consideration when we're thinking about elder people and disability. I have finished now.
My apologies, Caroline. It just goes to show you've all got so much to say. If you pause for breath now, I nearly cut you off. So I apologise for that. That was very bad on my part. So forgive me for that. Sorry, Caroline. Okay, same question then to Rob Carey, please.
I'd like to highlight one aspect of the housing situation. The number of people from outside the EEA on the housing list in Wicklow rose by 30% from 2022 to 2023, and those figures are from the Summary of Social Housing Assessments 2023 report by the Housing Agency. This will likely increase. Like if you look at the numbers in Fingal, the number of non-Irish applicants on the housing list rose to over 50%. Now that's unacceptable at a time when housing is in such short supply, and I believe there is a mechanism through which we can alleviate this. If you want to build a one-off home in rural Ireland, you need to demonstrate deep, long-standing links with the locality, family in the area, membership at a local GAA club, etc. Those same requirements, I believe, need to be brought in for social housing allocation, a demonstrable, long-standing connection to the local area that could slash waiting times for the people of Bray and surrounding areas who are currently dealing with lengthy delays in getting their social housing allocation.
You done, Rob? Sorry, I'm just really nervous now. Okay, thank you. Right, same question to Melanie Corrigan, please.
For housing for people with disabilities, I've met with the parents of Sunbeam and the housing officer to look at the needs of the emerging people coming through the disability sector and working with them and looking at the supports that are needed so we can plan for the future of people with disabilities coming through. I think the Dargan Hall development, where people from the community in Bray were asked if they want to downsize from a 3-bed to take up a small apartment close to the town where there's shops, amenities, transport. I really fully support that, and I think we should be, as a council, doing more like that for people that can surrender a 3-bedroom home to a family to a smaller unit where it's much more accessible for them. I would like to see more money allocated for the refurbishing of houses, and that's something that, if I get back in again, I will be trying to do. That was everything. That's everything.
Thank you. Just helps me be absolutely sure I'm not going to cut anyone else off again. Thank you, Melanie. Okay, the same question then to Colm Flood, please.
Yeah, so there's about 3,334 empty homes in Wicklow, according to the CSO and Department of Housing 2022 survey. They're homes that could be going towards the social housing list. Instead of building new apartment blocks, we could be using council funds to reallocate towards those homes and bring them back. I suppose in my own estate, there are 3. 2 to the right of me and 1 to the left that have been vacant for at least 8 months. That could be 2 or 3 new families that could be brought in instead of waiting a number of years in order to just be allocated to the social housing. It's important that we look at the safety of all residents in Bray as well, reducing that crime. And I suppose, yeah, we are at a point where there's a lot of people attempting to move into Bray from all around the country. And I suppose we would need to ensure that the Bray residents themselves are given the opportunity for housing before other people move in and take up those kind of houses lots as well. So I'd be looking, if elected, to ensure that social housing increases and that reallocation is for Bray only.
Thank you very much, Colm. And lastly, that question to Bryan Kenna, please.
Last in 2023, Wicklow County Council spent 22 million on just 1,282 units. We need to make sure that Wicklow County Council can buy these houses and sell them back to in a scheme type for affordable housing back to the people of Wicklow. We need to make sure that social housing is built and included social housing within the estate rather than putting social housing into one whole estate. We need full integration of all the people within those estates. We need to make sure that there is refurbishment schemes there as well. And for the elderly, we need to build something like Falcher Park again. It is fully fit for the elderly, flat areas as well, and that would come with a CPO on land. Also, we need to make sure that the cost rental schemes, they do not prioritize the disabled. This needs to change nationally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bryan, for that. And I think, unless I've made a mistake, everybody has had a chance to answer that question. Okay, so the next question is around how candidates were proposed to support local community groups, and issues that were raised in relation to that were around support for Ardmore Rovers in their search for a permanent home in Ballywaltram, and around the new Bray Residents Alliance, and also around the sustainability of community structures and community organisations themselves. So how will you support local community groups? I'm going to ask that first, please, to Alex Pigot.
Thank you. Well, I'm already involved in many local community groups with my wife Tina. I'm a founding member of the Glencree River Valley Native Woodland Association and also the Enniskerry Sustainable Energy Community. I'm involved with the Saving Knocksink Wood and with Enniskerry Tidy Towns. When my children were much younger, I chaired the Enniskerry Schoolboys and Schoolgirls Football Club, and I was manager there also for some years. We achieved lotto funding for the club at the time to build an all-weather pitch, which was a great success at the time. I was also on the management committee of Kirstlestown National School for a few years when the kids were at school, and I chaired the Social Responsibility Committee of the Parents Association in St. Gerard's when the kids were at school there. I'm happy to be part of and support any community group which is trying to protect our environment or make our areas a safe and healthy place for our children to grow up in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. The same question to Caroline Winstanley, please.
I know this has been a contentious issue, but I fully support Ardmore having its own home. I've seen the model that's proposed for Ballywaltram happen successfully at my daughter's football club. Her team managed the community astro pitches. There is a fair timetable where all the community get to use the space at special allocated times. And it's great that a team has ownership, because it just means that the pitch is maintained and that there's kind of accountability. Because sometimes when you just have things open without any kind of clear management, that's when kind of things get damaged or abused. I don't think that there's anything that can be contentious can be said about Bray Residents Alliance. Anything which has proper stakeholder engagement, where people are properly consulted about issues in their community, is never going to be a bad thing. In terms of sustainable communities, we need to be thinking about infrastructure. So as we're building new housing estates, we need to be thinking about schools. We have a shortage of schools.
Thank you, Caroline. Okay, and the same question, please, to Rob Carey.
With limited time, obviously, I'll focus here on sport. I've been involved in martial arts in Bryan for many years, and I competed at a professional level here in Ireland and abroad. I've been running my own club here for 10 years now, and I see every day the huge impact it can have on people's lives. And of course, Bray has no shortage of examples of what people from the town can achieve when they're fully supported. I hope that as somebody who runs a sports club, that people from Ardmore Rovers and others from any sports club really could feel that I was someone that I could come to and, you know, and relate with on issues regarding this. I'd love to support whoever I can, Ardmore, and I do believe I would support their bid to get their own home. The positive role that sport plays can't be underestimated. It's something I've been very close to and been a part of for a long time. So it's a real priority for me also.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob. And the same question, please, to Melanie Corrigan.
Thank you. As chair of the LCDC, and I know Dermot O'Brien is also on the committee there, we get to oversee a lot of grants that are given out to sports clubs and small businesses and societies, and that's something I would be working really hard again to keep up. It's very, very important, whether it be a small grant or a large grant, but also making sure they know how to access them and helping them fill in forms is very, very important. And I think that's a huge part of the job, giving that information out to the community. Fully support the development of the Ballywaltram Recreational Park. It's overdue and badly needed. The whole community up there is crying out for it, as well as Ardmore. One of my own boys played for Ardmore. All my children are into sports, and I know how important it is physically and mentally. I'm also very involved in a lot of community groups and sports groups, and very involved with the new playground for Enniskerry. We have never had a playground. I think they're so important for young children, for people to be able to connect. But any new development, playground, sports grounds has to be done in a sustainable way.
Thank you for that, Melanie. Okay, and the same question, please, to Colm Flood.
So yeah, I'm delighted to see that Ardmore Rovers are making some headway on getting a permanent home up in Ballywaltram, and of course I would support them in that work. Part of my life has been volunteering in community groups in Bray and the likes of the ISPCC and working the Dublin Samaritan Phones. I really do get to see the kind of troubles that go on in our country and especially in our county in Bray. It's important for us to support these community groups. They do fantastic work, especially in the likes of youth services. They're incredibly important. The likes of the Bray Youth Club up here in Ballywaltram do a lot of work in diversions from the Gardaí. They also work in the likes of drop-in centres, which is important for our youth, especially to socialise after school. It's also a place for them to go where they can get food and water, socialise and do their homework as well. It's important that these community groups are looked after. I'm delighted that the Bray Residents Alliance actually only recently contacted me, and I'm delighted that I'll be meeting them next week, hopefully to discuss more plans for Bray.
Thank you very much, Colm. And the same question to Bryan, please.
I'd be happy to join any community group, or at least we meet with any community group and discuss. I'd actually be advocating for more community support groups in Kilmechanic and rebuilding the community within Kilmechanic. As for the pitch and Ardmore Rovers, I would be advocating for that once it's done correctly. Something like what Shoreline in Greystones would have. They would have the running track, and once it's managed in a community-based way, that it's not just given over to one group and that's it, that it is a communal space for all residents there. And of course, having sport plays a massive part of that, and having mental health awareness up there as well as part of that scheme also. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Bryan. And the same question, please, to Dermot.
Thank you. I think that the how part of the question is actually quite important as well. How will we support community groups? And for me, the how is about our presence in the community, our connection to community groups, our willingness to fulfill that very human need of being seen and heard, and then the add-on being involved in decisions that might impact on you. So I think that as a principle is very, very important for me. Whether it's Ardmore, I think the journey of the development of the plan for Ballywaltram is a testament to how we can do good consultation. I'm involved, as Melanie said, in the LCDC as well, which is a very huge responsibility about how will we allocate something like €5 million across the county and including Bray. and that can make a difference to people's lives. And that's again a real honor to be part of that, but also to take the responsibility to ensure that plans have a sustainability dimension, that are cognizant of the Sustainable Development Goals in how they're designed.
Thank you, Dermot, for that, and for all your contributions on that question. I'm going to move on to a different topic. This is around social inclusion, and the question is, what is your stance on social inclusion, and how would you create a society within which everybody can thrive and feel that they belong? And some of the specifics that were raised in the questions that were submitted related to the cost of living crisis, the development of community care centres along the lines of the one in Carnew, I think, things like walkability audits and plans and actions within each of the towns and areas of the MD, and ensuring the safety of asylum seekers. So the question again is, what is your stance on social inclusion, and how would you create a society within which everybody can thrive and feel that they belong? I'm going to ask that question first to Caroline Winstanley, please. You're muted, Caroline.
The Social Democrats has a really strong policy on cost of living. So they're keen to have a universal healthcare system, free GP visits, genuinely free education. They're very keen on a cost of disability payment. So I'm from that background. I was really interested in the Carnew setup. I think that that's an excellent option for some people. It definitely keeps people out of nursing homes and in a more kind of social environment. But what I think it doesn't focus on is that people should be able to access regular community spaces and do things that everyone else does. And it's about making our current environment accessible to all, so people don't have to necessarily go into special centres, that they can be supported in their own homes and meet with people kind of socially in their own environments. I think that we need to be kind of thinking more kind of broadly about how we develop Bray and how we make it inclusive to all. And I just want to say, during these elections, we all have a responsibility to use non-toxic. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Caroline. Okay, the same question, please, to Rob Carey.
Obviously, this is a huge and complex question, but I can talk about my role in my sports club, and that might give people an idea where I'm at on it. We offer discounted classes for women in order to encourage more women and girls from teens up to stay in the sport. We provide discounted training to special needs groups like Féin and Lente. I provided free training for Ukrainian kids, and I also have a policy of providing completely free training to anyone who is struggling financially. They can contact me, let me know what's going on, and I can train them for free. I've used my club as a mechanism through which I've been able to pull people from all walks of life into what I believe is a really positive environment. My sport and my club is really for everyone. It's a welcoming place in which people are supported when they come through the doors. There's an ethos and a belief that I'll certainly carry into the council and all aspects of my work in it.
Okay, thank you, Rob. And the same question to Melanie Corrigan, please.
Thank you. We have a Sinn group within Wicklow County Council, which is Social Inclusion Network Group. And I have to say, I've learned so much from that. I know Dermot's on it as well. We're on a lot of the similar committees, but it's a fantastic way of finding out all the interagency. And I think that needs to happen more. So we can help people in the community because we know what's going on and we're able to we're in contact regularly with other people. I think we've brought in the free school books for children, school meals, extending free GP for children. We definitely need more community space. COVID has had a lot to pay for that. We've lost a lot of, community spaces that people were able to hold meetings, hold get-togethers. We need to look at that. I'm very involved with the Meals on Wheels. I think we've got to, I'm actually chasing HSE now at the moment to get their budget increased to extend it within the community. Keeping older people at home in their communities is so important. We have a fantastic girl within the council now who is an older person's going out to visit people in the home, making sure they have the right grants and disabilities to look after them.
Thank you, Melanie. And I'm going to take the same question to Colm, please.
Yeah, so part of the social inclusion things that I work on is I founded recently with the support of Wicklow County Council a company called Club Enclave. And part of our kind of remit is to ensure that LGBTQ members over 18 have a safe, non-judgmental place to go where they can access signposting and support. We ensure that they come together to support each other from drag communities the whole way up the LGBTQ spectrum. Part of my role would be to support other organisations in Wicklow to try and get them to inclusivity people together. So the likes of Ballywatram has an open day every year. I would love to have every month in the summer street days and street feasts where neighbours and children can come out and I suppose have that as well. I'd be looking to try and cap the current increases seen in food markets at the moment in the likes of Super Value, Tesco. Their prices have gone up some as far as 25% on their website as compared to 2022. So that would be something I would be working on to help ease the impact on people's money.
Thank you, Colm. And I'm going to ask the same question to Bryan. Kenna, please.
The Carnew model is a fantastic model. It's definitely something that Bray West could build on and possibly improve. It has, of course, its side effects, but it's something that we can look at and improve, making sure that elderly people with disability are included and fully included into the society that we live in. It's great to see that there's a lot more shops doing the low arousal shopping hours as well for children and young adults with autism, and something like that with a disability pass for people as I am have with their jam cards as well. So it just gives people time to listen and care for the person with disability, slow down and lets them have fully inclusion within our town and our villages around Bray West area. And to have that social inclusion included for elderly people as well, to make sure that there's full supports there. Sorry.
Thanks, Bryan. Okay, and the same question to Dermot or Bryan, please.
Thanks very much. Again, a huge question. In terms of cost of living, I did a really interesting piece of research with the Youth Council in Wicklow last year. And what was really striking was that young people are now feeling the burden of the cost of living crisis and the impact of it, even though it's not something that they have to manage personally. So they're worried about their parents, they're worried about their future, they're worried about decisions around fuel or food. And it's really affecting their well-being. And I think when we zoom out, then we need to look at social inclusion as the glue that holds communities together. And if we want communities to thrive and feel like they belong, then there's things like, for me, what's very important is a trauma-informed approach to realize that people have needs and that we can respond to the needs as they present them, that we have like an anchor of human rights and human dignity sitting in there, so that people who are coming into communities, who are new in town, can feel that that the inclusion piece is held by everybody, that they don't have to just look in one place for that.
Thank you, Dermot. And I'm going to ask that question lastly to Alex Pigot, please.
Thanks. I believe everyone deserves to be given the chance to achieve their full potential, whether they're be from a minority group such as travellers or migrants, direct provision refugees, low-income household, or be physically challenged. For these groups, in fact, to ensure they are offered the chance to achieve their full potential, positive discrimination, they need to be employed on occasion, as they've not started life with as beneficial a background as most people in Ireland. And that means providing them with resources such as special education, fuel supplement, or cultural understanding, and so on. Joe O'Brien, our Green Minister for Community Development, launched the government's Social Inclusion and Community Activation Programme, which funds 600 community workers who help ensure that no one is left behind. I'll be examining that programme to be able to offer help anyone who is perhaps not fully included in our wonderful society here in North Wicklow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. Okay, again, we have a shift in the focus of the questions. So now we're moving on to climate. And the question is, which climate actions do you see as urgent locally within this municipal district? And if you like, behind that, there's questions around the fact that the local authority has recently adopted its climate action plan. And the question really asks, what key actions would you like to see implemented from that? And how would you highlight climate action and biodiversity in your local work if you were elected? So the question there is, which climate actions do you see as urgent locally within the municipal district? Okay, and I'm going to start with Rob Carey, please, on that one. You're still on mute, Rob, sorry.
You're on mute, Rob.
Apologies. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm going to dive right in. I'm going to just step a little bit beyond the parameters of this question if I can. Biodiversity and habitat restoration are really, really key for me. Ireland is down to obviously less than 1% of its native forests. And I know it's not in the MD, but we have some pockets here in Wicklow, which have been mentioned already. Really amazing spaces that should be treasured and where possible expanded. I was in Glendalough today, and you know, the forests are beautiful, but they're not in great shape. There's damaged deer fencing, which is leading to a lack of regrowth, and there's a lot of invasive rhododendron. Like, this is our natural heritage. It's our birthright. It's part of who we are, and it's great to see that we have some others on the call today who are passionate about this topic. And I'd very much look forward to working with them to protect what we have and expand where we can. We've really got only a small few tiny pockets left, and I really feel we need to do what we can to protect them.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob. Same question, please, to Melanie Corrigan.
I think we can do a lot locally on this. I've also been involved in the Save Knocksink campaign, and something I will still be working with. We had a new community garden in Enniskerry, which is wonderful for people to grow their herbs and learn a lot about different things that are going on. I've been supporting another group in Bray who are starting one. There's a group in Kilmechanic also looking at one, which I will be supporting. I've got funding from the discretionary fund for water stations. So there'll be two new ones, one on the seafront and hopefully one up on the main street where you can refill your water bottle. I think the water return scheme, sorry, Rob, but I think it's actually a great scheme. I'd like to see more stations where you can actually drop your bottles back, and some that you can drop your bottle back to donate to charity, so people don't have to stock them up until they go to do their week's shopping. I'm very involved with the Tidy Towns. I've been part of the promoting Enniskerry as with the to-go cups, so it's paper cup free. Love to see that happening in Bray, getting all the businesses in Bray to join in. No mow May, I mean, no sprays. I fully work with those.
Thank you, Melanie. It's a challenge, and again, I think we're all really aware that we are limiting people's time speaking here. So thank you so much to all the candidates for sticking with this. The same question, please, to Colm Flood.
Yeah, so I suppose the climate action is a huge issue, since Greta Thunberg also kind of highlighted the issue. Throughout my last few years, I've been kind of organising the resistance movement to, I suppose, more petrol and diesel cars being used on our roads. I'm a huge believer that electric vehicles are the way to go, and they will reduce our carbon emissions and ensure that our electric infrastructure can be put in place. But I'm aware that our current infrastructure wouldn't allow, and along with charging ports along Bray, it would be very difficult for people to charge their cars. So I would be advocating for more charge ports along Bray. I'd be advocating for some form of crossover where people can trade in their petrol and diesel cars for a much cheaper alternative electric vehicle. Currently, I'm aware of those limitations, but I would also ensure that our county is as green as possible. Wicklow is a beautiful county, and I think we should be highlighting its commitment to climate justice and restoration.
Thank you very much, Colm. I'm going to ask the same question to Bryan Kenna, please.
There's a biodiversity space in Kilmechanic. I'd be looking for that to be expanded, or at least expanded into another area. This would also include making sure that its native species of plants, trees are grown in that at face of plant life, removed where possible as well, and make sure that native species are grown. I also think that it was closed as well, that we can reopen a return to refilling water bottles as well. That needs to go up in the recycling centre. We need to maybe put in a recycle reuse type shop in there, that we can have reusable, sustainable utensils in place there as well for all walks of life. I also believe that if there is a change to the transportation, so this bus corridor is put in, we need to have a greenway flyover put in place also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bryan. And that question to Dermot, Bryan, as well, please.
Thank you. So I've had the pleasure of being on the Climate and Biodiversity Action Strategic Policy Committee for the last 5 years, a brand new committee that never existed before that. And it's been really phenomenal to see how a topic as important as climate and biodiversity has now woven itself into all the aspects of a local authority's work. And I think that if we were looking at Bray, if I go a bit meta on it maybe, and think that that the new council at the start of its term should commit itself to a full consideration of the climate and biodiversity action that will be undertaken in Bray, and be I'm on the SAAO committee for Bray Head, which again gives us insight about the things we can do in terms of restoration and neighborhood schemes and such like. So I really think that we have to ensure that climate and biodiversity is on the agenda, and that there are actions associated with it, and that with the climate action plan that's in place, that we just localize that in a Bray dimension and make sure that we see action.
Thank you very much, Dermot. I'm going to ask that same question to Alex Pigot, please.
Thanks. When I was down in Wicklow County Buildings this morning, the solar panels in the car park I thought were amazing, and what a wonderful example that Wicklow is showing to other local authorities. But there's more I think that they can do. Eliminate use of glyphosate, more solar panels, retrofit the buildings, LED lighting, and replace the fleet with EVs. And by doing so, they can then promote the uptake of similar measures in businesses and agriculture in our community. And then in the community, what they should be doing, and probably are doing some of, is support ministers' effort to increase bus and bicycle usage through extra lanes, especially to facilitate our children going to school. Ensure the protection of trees by making developers aware of the penalties, supporting deer management practices, involving local groups and especially schools in this issue. Educate communities about forest and upland fire prevention and the prosecution, and again educate schools. And lastly, assisting sustainable energy communities like the ones that are popping up to build solar power generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And that question also to Caroline Winstanley, please.
I think if we can improve transport in Bray, that will go a huge way to helping with the climate crisis. So I was talking to one lady and she wants to use public transport, but it's a 20-minute journey versus in a car versus an hour and 45 minutes using public transport. So if we can make options more viable, then we can move people away from relying on cars. We need to improve cycling options in Bray. We need more bicycle storage. We need more e-charging points. We need to be looking to develop more community gardens and allotments on derelict land. My family actually volunteers with Rewild Island and Rewild Wicklow, and they do amazing work. So we need to be doing more tree planting, vegetation management, peat restoration, fixing fences and cleanups. So it's supporting those real grassroots organisations that are doing amazing work already in our county.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen. Okay, thank you all on that question. The next one is slightly more specific, and it asks, if you're elected, what way will you vote on Wicklow County Council's ongoing proposal to build a suspension bridge over the River Dargle next to the railway line? Okay, so how would you vote on Wicklow County Council's ongoing proposal to build a suspension bridge over the River Dargle? And I'm going to start by asking that question to Melanie Corrigan, please.
Sorry, couldn't unmute. The plan that was presented to us previously for that suspension bridge was just utterly ludicrous, and I don't think I could have possibly voted. We do have a problem with traffic getting in and out of Bray, and I do think a bridge will have to be built. That is certainly not the place to be building it for the sake of the swans, for the sake of the community down there. The roads were not going to be able to cope with the traffic coming off that bridge. I do think we need to look at a second bridge, but certainly that is not the place, and I would not be voting for that proposal. If there was one further up, I mean, there's Rehills land there where for social housing. We've been crying out for social and affordable housing. That is a more better place, I think, where you're coming into a different section of the town. You're also servicing then houses that could be built there. I think I would have to look at it before I would say yes to it, but that would be far more preferable than I wouldn't be voting on the other bridge.
Thank you, Melanie, for that. The same question, please, to Colm Flood.
Yeah, so I am concerned about the swans impacting the cables on that bridge, and I don't think enough work has gone into that design as it stands for it to be something that we would vote for. I would be very much in favour of an alternative bridge, kind of like what Melanie was saying, maybe up a little bit, servicing those houses. I don't think it's a good idea to build that bridge there, and I would be voting no had I the option, just for the protection of our environment. A lot of people love feeding the swans in that area, and it's important that we maintain that nature in our town. And definitely we don't want to be risking the impact of swans and wildlife on our construction as well. We have a duty of care, and that just doesn't seem to be the case in this situation.
Thank you, Colm. Same question to Bryan, Kenna, please.
I wouldn't be voting for that particular bridge. It is like that. It's going to have not just the swans, but other wildlife and birds life flying into it and causing more disruption potentially to that. I would be looking at another bridge up further up the Dargle, but we need to be careful and mindful of the floodplain as well. And we need to be thinking about the floodplain up along the Dargle that will have an overall impact, not just to the wildlife, but to the residents as well of the Dargle, of Bray as a whole. I wouldn't be voting for that bridge. We need to look at an alternative route and an alternative way around that is not impacting in any way on the floodplain. Thanks.
Thank you, Bryan. The same question, please, to Dermot or Bryan.
Thank you. So yeah, I did not support it when it was proposed, and I would not support it if it was brought to the table again. And what I would say about that, even as a whole example of how local authorities operate or should not operate, I would have to give credit to maybe on some level some of the councillors, but really more so the community and the people who came together and formed the Save Bray group and campaigned against this eyesore that was going to cause untold damage in lots of different domains, and took it upon themselves to go and fight the case against An Bord Pleanála and take it to the High Court. And I really believe that they showed us how people power is still something that's available to our community, and that they leverage that power and hold politicians to account in that regard, which is one of the most inspirational things that I've seen over the 5 years. And I'm so happy to be able to say that they won their case last Friday, and they will now, An Bord Pleanála will have to go back and do an environmental impact assessment on that location. Thanks.
Thank you, Dermot. Same question, please, to Alex Pigot.
Thank you. Well, as a Green, I would completely concur with in terms of protecting our biodiversity. And what we also are trying to get is a 15-minute, towns and cities where we're walking and cycling, back and forth, building more road infrastructure to get in and out of Bray, instead of looking at taking the finance and putting it into walks and bicycle lanes and more bus routes, is where what I would be looking at. So I would be against the proposal as it stands at the moment, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. The same question to Caroline Winstanley, please.
I was going to pick up on kind of what Dermot had said about like this question. Things have moved on since this question maybe was originally submitted by the group, and we've seen the results of the High Court judgment now. I think this really shows the power of what we can do when we listen to our community and the voices come together. Look, we do need to come up with some sort of plan. We do need some sort of bridge, but I could never get my head around how it was all going to work. It just seemed to be pushing the traffic further down the Dublin road and not really addressing the overarching problems. So I hope when the whole traffic management plan for Bray is looked at, that's maybe there's other options or kind of something that would be much more beneficial to the management of traffic within Bray. But I'm glad the swans are...
Thank you. Thanks, Caroline. And the same question to Rob Carey, please.
I've also had issues around the swans flagged to me when canvassing numerous times actually, and it was my understanding also that this plan was kind of on its last legs. I'm not totally up to date on where it's at, but I'd certainly echo what has been said. I think we're in unanimous agreement on this one. Yeah, there's a need to alleviate traffic in the area, but those swans aren't just an iconic part of our town. They're members of our town, and yeah, I'd absolutely believe that an alternative design that would be safer from that perspective would be needed here.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Rob. And the next question, I'm hoping we might be able to do it sort of quite rapidly, and people might take 30 seconds if that works, Cornia. The question is, what are you doing in your own life to help reduce your carbon footprint or your climate impact? Okay, so what is it that you're doing in your own life to help reduce your carbon footprint or your climate impact? Okay, and I'm going to come first, please, to Colm Flood to answer that.
Yeah, so our carbon footprint is very, very important. A part of how I reduce my footprint is I look at Prepaid Power. They're a fantastic company, and they have this lovely statistic. Been with them for 2-3 years now, and it shows me what we call vampire energy, which is devices left plugged in that are using overnight. I use my car less, and I calculate the carbon footprint that comes from that as well. I use buses and trains whenever I can. All of this comes together to reduce my footprint personally, but I also advertise it to my neighbours, and they jump on board too.
Thank you very much, Colm. I realise I've just shut down people's time even more, but it allows us to get on to some of the others as well. So the same question, please, to Bryan Kenna.
I'm walking more to work and leaving the car at home, remotely working where possible, and making sure that I'm not in the car as often, maybe getting back out on the bike, and especially canvassing now as well, getting out and walking, reducing that, recycling and reusing where possible, you know, with re-rinse the mug again every day and reuse that rather than going for another mug in the press. Yeah.
Thank you, Bryan. Same question to Dermot or Bryan, please.
I reckon that I have clocked up so many carbon credits now at this stage because I've never driven a car my whole life. So I use public transport exclusively and the 2 legs that are underneath the desk here. So that's something very tangible for me. I'm very lucky as well in that I get to, as an educator, I get the right education resources around these issues for educators in schools and non-formal settings. So I think I'm making a decent contribution.
Thank you for that, Dermot. Same question to Alex Pigot, please.
Right. I don't know really how to sort of do this, but anyway, I have an electric car, I have a charger at home, and we've got solar on the roof. We grow about 25% of our own food, and we got some scrubland up the top of Glencree, and we're building myself and Tina are building an agroforestry project there with fruit and bees and native woodland, but we're leaving the wet heat bottling as it is. We fly as little as possible, and so that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Alex. Caroline Winstanley.
I also have an electric car, a second-hand electric car, and a home charger. I try and take the ferry for holidays as much as possible, and I'm a keen camper, so I spend a lot of time in a tent. I buy local and seasonal vegetables. I'm trying to reduce the amount of meat I eat, reusable shopping bags. I try and take the dart as much as possible, and I am a firm believer of zero waste sites, and I actively participate in them.
Thank you, Caroline. Sorry, just nervous. I'm cutting people off. Okay, the same question, please, to Rob Carey.
In addition to running a martial arts club, I also run a commercial gym in Bray. It's a 1,000 square foot facility, and one of the first things I did when I moved in was to upgrade the lighting from halogen to LED, and there were a lot of units. I also installed new low energy heaters, and I'm examining the possibility of solar panels for the roof. I come from a long line of gardeners. My garden has been completely taken over by small pots containing oak and birch and willow, and I'm due to move into a new home later this month with a 1 acre garden. So these native species, which are all from the trees around Wicklow, will be finding a new forever home along with me pretty soon, by the looks of it.
Thank you very much, Rob. And lastly, Melanie Corrigan.
I'm very lucky. I have a small farm here. We keep our own chickens. I grow a lot of our own veg. I'm vegetarian myself. We use a lot of the natural fertilizers on the farm. We don't use any sprays or anything. We're not certified organic, but we don't use any sprays. We recycle a lot of the water that we use, and I love clothes swaps and charity shops. So I do a lot of my shopping there. And yeah, I've since stopped buying a lot of water bottles because I think just a great advocate for the recycling bottles.
Thank you, Melanie. Okay. The next question, again, we've a shift of gear and shift of focus, is in relation to Palestine. And the question is, how has your party and yourself, or you as an independent, voted on the recent veto in Israel, and what you suggest is a way forward in addressing the genocide and oppression in Palestine? Okay, so that's how your party and yourself, or you as an independent, have voted in the recent veto, or how you feel about that, I guess, if you've not been involved directly. What you suggest is the way forward in addressing the genocide and oppression in Palestine. And I'm going to start, please, with Bryan Kenna.
Is that 30 seconds still? Okay, yeah.
Yes, I think keep it brief, please.
Yeah, we're in full solidarity with the people of Palestine, and the best way is to finally recognize Palestine as an individual free state, and to advocate for other European countries to also stand up and make sure that Palestine is recognized for a free and a state on its own.
Thank you. Thanks, Bryan. That's great. Dermot or Bryan, please.
Thank you. I think my party has a very long and meaningful relationship with Palestine and has supported the Palestine movement for freedom for decades. I think I recently proposed a motion in Wicklow County Council around ethical procurement, which is a very tangible thing that our county council can and should do. It was passed, so should do, as one way of ensuring that the apartheid state of Israel doesn't get to benefit from its exploitation and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. It's a tough question for 30 seconds.
Indeed. Thank you, Dermot, for that. And Alex Pigot, please.
One of the core Green Party principles is the need for world peace overrides national and commercial interests. Many of us abhor this genocide of Palestinians and are dumbstruck by the lack of efforts by European leaders to do more to stop the war there by peace talks instead of throwing more weapons at it. Many of us are also flabbergasted that our European leaders show such shocking discrimination between what was happening in Ukraine when Russia was sanctioned within 2 months of the war starting, whereas the Israelis still, some 8 months later, enjoy a full EU commercial agreement. The way forward with the war in Israel is immediate sanctions, followed by insistence that both sides come to the table to bring about a peaceful solution, whether that be a...
Thank you, Alex, and I'm sorry you got cut off there. Okay, I'm going to ask the same question to Caroline Winstanley, please.
I think the Social Democrats have been hugely vocal on the issues in Palestine. We asked for the expulsion of the ambassador to Ireland, and we've pushed for EU-wide economic sanctions on Israel. We need to continue that advocacy in Europe and really push people to find a political solution, not a military solution to this crisis.
Thank you. Okay, that's great. And the same question, please, to Rob Carey. You're muted, sorry, Rob.
Apologies. Yeah, it's hard not to feel helpless on this one. Like, Israel appears determined to press ahead with this genocide, regardless of the actions or inactions of the international community. I agree, though, that one of the few things Ireland can do is recognise Palestine, and I was happy to see the government's position on this. As mentioned, I have an ongoing fundraiser that's pulling in funds for a brilliant charity in MAP, which is Medical Aid for Palestine. And I'll certainly be keeping this going for the foreseeable future, providing as much practical help as I can on that.
Thank you, Rob, for that. I'm going to ask the same question to Melanie Corrigan, please.
I don't think anyone can condone the atrocities that are going on in Palestine. It's just shocking to watch, and something I find very, very disturbing. I personally fully support Palestinian movement, and I feel it's been too slow, very slow about coming about. That we are recognising it, but it is coming. But I feel it's been just too slow doing it.
Lastly, to Colm, please.
So I was with People Before Profit for the last 2 years as their candidate before I switched over to independent. And I suppose during my time there, I called for the expulsion of the ambassador from Israel. I called for an immediate stop for the attacks. As a healthcare worker and as a student nurse myself, my heart goes out to each and every one of the healthcare workers that are working in hospitals being bombed in Gaza. I think it is incomprehensible, the war crimes that have been committed over there in the name of retaliatory attack. And I think it's time that a solution is done to secure the Palestinian people. And my heart goes out to each and every one of them.
Thank you, Colm, and all of you for your answers to that. We have just 2 questions left, and if we stick to short answers, we might just make it. So I'm going to press ahead, and the next question is, again, it's quite specific. Do you support giving former residents of the notorious West Bank orphanage, Greystones, access to the Residential Institutions Redress Scheme or some equivalent scheme, just like the fused residents of Golden Bridge, Artane, Letterfrack, or the Smiley's Home? So again, do you support giving former residents of the notorious West Bank orphanage, Greystones, access to the Residential Institutions Redress Scheme or some equivalent? Okay. And I'm going to ask that first to Dermot or Bryan.
Thanks very much. Again, this is a very heavy topic, and as someone who's a trauma trainer, I can see very clearly the need for people who have been harmed and hurt and abused to be supported. That will never be undone, but they deserve healing, and all the elements that are required to support people's healing includes redress. So I would very much support anybody who's been in any scenario where they have suffered at the hands of an institution, in whatever way is possible, to support their healing. Thanks.
Thank you, Dermot. I'm going to ask the same question to Alex Pigot, please.
I think if someone suffered unjustly at the hands of the state, then of course they should be offered redress in every case and quickly, and not being left to try and fight for it for years and years. But I think we should always be wary of applying the standards of a wealthy Ireland today to the broken and impoverished Ireland of, the past. That's it.
Alex, Caroline, Winstanley?
I don't think I need the whole 30 seconds for this one. Yes, of course. I don't think that any discussion needs to happen. People need to feel that they've been listened to and that that their past has been acknowledged. And I don't think there's much more to say about it than that.
Thank you, Caroline. Same question to Rob Carey.
Yeah, I absolutely support giving former residents of West Bank access to the redress scheme. I have family members myself who found themselves in hell-like Irish orphanages not far from here, and I've seen close-hand what a life of trauma from that type of abuse can look like, and I would absolutely support those people, and the process should be expedited and made as easy and as smooth as possible.
Thank you, Rob. Melanie Corrigan?
Yes, I absolutely support them, and the pain will never go away, but they need to be given the redress and acknowledged, and to have the supports to help heal and help the wounds go away. And it shouldn't take years for that to happen. So yes, I fully support them.
Thank you, Melanie. Colm, please.
Yeah, so I suppose the more I hear about it, the more disgusted I am at the treatment of these poor people who were in these situations abused by an institution. I would be very much in favour of redress. Again, echoing what Melanie said, there really is nothing we can do that will take away that pain, but at least this way we can in some part give some justice and comfort to the families and to the victims. I think it's important that we support them through what they're going through. Being a student nurse, its trauma can be very devastating, both psychologically and physically. It's important that we support them through it.
Thank you. And lastly on this one, could I ask Bryan, Kenna, please?
Yes, I stand by with them that they should be redressed and they should be recognised by the government, and also an apology offered by the government and the holding religious order. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, the last question, and it's great for people who submitted these. It's absolutely brilliant that we've managed to get through all of them. So thank you very much for your patience in doing this. But the last one it's quite a long question, so it's to do with reduced school timetables. And the question is, what is your view on the use of reduced timetables for children? The guidelines say the use of the reduced timetables should be short term, but some schools use them as punishment, thus excluding children from gaining an education, which is a basic right. Okay? So the question is, what is your view on the use of reduced timetables for children? And I'm going to ask that, please, to Alex Pigot first.
Well, I'm all for children enjoying their young lives and playing outside and getting off their digital devices. And like when I was a kid, I hated homework, and that overhanging misery of homework was not done early, especially on summer weekends. I think it's unfair that parents are asked to spend quality time with their children, going back to school themselves to help homework be done. Schoolwork should be done in school. It possibly doesn't answer the question, but that would be my view on children's schooling at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. And the same question to Caroline Winstanley, please.
A reduced school timetable should really be a short-term option. With all strategies, they can be abused. I have seen it work really well, particularly for secondary school children who maybe have who neurodivergent, have been school refusing. It can be really helpful to gradually kind of reduce their hours back into school. I also think it's a school's sometimes a response to having lack of resources. And although it's not right, I think it's just showing the chronic lack of funding that schools have in terms of being able to give children all the support they need to be able to do a full school day.
Thank you, Caroline. Same question, please, to Rob Carey.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I think realistically, sometimes there aren't a lot of other options available to teachers in this regard. But I think too that it should be a last resort. It can place a huge burden on parents. And as the person who sent in the question pointed out, it can also seriously impact a child's education. But I think Caroline is right here. I think this is probably a symptom of a lack of resources, and it's a case of moving a problem rather than taking the time to solve it as a result of a lack of resources in that way.
Thank you, Rob. And the same question to Melanie Corrigan.
I think it should only be used in extreme circumstances. And again, it kind of comes into where the schools possibly cannot support the child to the best of their needs. I'm on the board of a special school, and we have had to use it for certain circumstances for the child's own safety for sometimes. And as Caroline said, maybe they need to be reintroduced slowly into it. So sometimes it's not just as a punishment, maybe it's for the child's own safety or for the safety of other children or the staff. But again, it's resources that are badly needed too.
Thank you, Melanie. The same question, please, to Colm.
Yeah, so I suppose a reduced timetable across the board wouldn't be something I would endorse. I think our healthcare, our education system does a good job with teachers. I think it is under-resourced critically. I look at the youth reach system and I see the shorter timetables, work done in school, slower classroom, and more people tend to pass through the youth reach. As a second chance education system, I think the assignment work, if replaced with homework and done in school, will give the opportunity for students to prepare for life after leaving cert.
Thank you, Colm. And Bryan, Kenna?
I'd be against this unless there is some other aspect of education put in place as well. So whether that's some sort of social inclusion for the children, so if they're not attending school, that there is something in place that the school can run away from the school and they can have some inclusion, whether that's going visiting disabled, working in a nursing home, something that can broaden the horizons and learn about diversity within the community also. Thanks.
Thanks, Bryan. And Dermot or Bryan?
Yeah, I don't think children should ever have to suffer the deficits of an education system that is not dynamic enough to manage what is being presented there on a day-to-day basis. I think the worst thing that any setting can do to a child or a young person is say that you are not welcome here, or you are not worthy of being in this space and accessing what we're offering. In fact, that you will be excluded from that. And I think the long-term effect to that we feel throughout all the service providers.
Thank you, Dermot, and thank you all for your answers to all of those questions. I've just been passed a message to say that while we've been running this webinar, there has been an invitation come in to all of the candidates to visit the Cardias Clubhouse. And Cardias is a peer support group for people with mental health difficulties in Bray. And so they've extended that invitation to everybody that's here this evening. And hopefully you're very welcome to go down and visit them and thank them for their engagement here this evening and that kind invitation. I'm going to pass you over to Karina now to close out this evening, but I'd really like to thank you for giving such a lot of thought and attention to the answers that you've given to all of those questions across all of those topics. And speaking from somebody who engages in this sort of thing across the country, I think it's a phenomenal opportunity to support our democracy and people's right to hear you as their candidate. So thank you very much for your time this evening. Karina.
Okay, thank you, Harriet. On behalf of Wicklow PPN and Wicklow's Older People's Council, I would like to thank you all for joining us this evening. We'd also like to thank Harriet for facilitating our event, and I'd like to include Helen and Grania for setting up the organisation of it. We hope that this meeting has given our members a sound introduction to all the candidates. We also hope the meeting has provided an insight into where all the candidates' interests lie and what work and issues they might prioritise if they are successful on the 7th of June. We hope that in turn, this meeting has given the candidates an insight into the concerns and priorities of our members. And should they be successful on the 7th of June, that they will work towards achieving positive outcomes on many, if not all, of these issues. As Conor from the PPN Secretariat mentioned earlier, we are aware that there have been more questions submitted than there was time to ask. And this is particularly true for this meeting this evening. We have developed a document containing all the questions, and this was sent to all the candidates in the hope that they will use them as a reminder of what our members see as important and what our members will use to measure their work in the future. A link to the document will also be shared in the upcoming PPN newsletters. We'd encourage you all to have a look at the PPN election special newsletter sent on the 28th of April. All newsletters are on the PPN website. We'd also like to draw the candidates' attention to the vision for community wellbeing that were developed from extensive consultations in 2018 and reviewed during consultations in 2022. These can be found on the Wicklow PPN website. The Bray MD Vision for Community Wellbeing states, Bray Municipal District is a vibrant, safe and socially responsible community where all of the people are equally valued, enabled to achieve their potential and enjoy good health in a sustainable, natural and built environment. We hope that the collaboration and engagement this evening continues and that we can work together to achieve this vision. We wish the candidates well in their endeavours and thank them and our members for the attendance tonight. So thank you all very much.